Yay, here we are. I'm less nervous this time.
Oh, good. Oh, good. I'm
We're making
neutral. I'm less
neutral.
nervous about like the fact that we're recording, but like I skimmed the questions and there's some thinkers in there. So,
Yeah, definitely. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Ellen Explains It All. This is the show where I ask our executive director, Amanda Chin, your questions that you send in. Yay!
yay.
And I like to ask Amanda a question about herself before we jump in. And this month I would like to ask Amanda, what is your favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh, I did see this in the sheet and I remember to myself, I don't really eat breakfast.
Ooh, I don't either. Well, no, I started making smoothies recently,
Well, that's
which
nice.
has
Yeah.
been nice.
I'm kind of like a coffee in the morning gal.
Mm.
Maybe a piece of fruit. But when I was growing up, basically I was force fed before school every day a bowl of Raisin Bran.
You know, hot take, I like raisin bread.
Great.
Yeah, good for me.
Yeah, yeah. But when I see that purple box, I don't even know if it's still purple anymore. It's like a little like, oh God, there it is.
Well, I'm sorry to bring up cereal-based trauma for you.
It's okay. It's okay.
I would gladly eat raisin bran every morning.
Oh, wow.
I really like it.
Good for you.
Um,
Good for you.
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. This month's topic is the future of AWT. I won't lie, I was a little bit hesitant about it because it's pretty broad.
Hmm.
But I do think we ended up getting some pretty great questions, which kind of put those anxieties at ease. So thanks everyone, for being great participants in this show. Anything you want to say before we jump in, Amanda?
No, I just, continue to be grateful for you, Ellen, and for this community for asking such thoughtful questions. I too shared your hesitation. And then as I was like skimming through the questions, I was like, oh, a lot of this is like ideas.
Yeah, a
And then
lot of
it all
people,
clicked. It all made sense,
yeah, I think here people are more like looking to hear your thoughts on ideas they have,
which
which
I'm
is
very
great.
thrilled to do, very happy to do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Then we'll jump right in. Question number one. Would you consider a more established way to show interest in being on a creative team or any more formal training for those that are interested?
Yes, the answer is yes. This has been on my back burner for, I would say, years now. And I acknowledge there have been many people in the community who've come up to me and said, like, I'm interested in this, I'm interested in that. I want to learn more. I want to learn how to direct. I want to learn how to stage manage. And I've clocked it all. And I've known like I don't have a great answer for this at the moment. And then my anxiety starts to creep up about this demand that I don't have supply for. But with Riva as our new program manager, one of our projects that we've already started working on is how to establish a more formal process, how to get some training in for folks. And we don't have anything formal to reveal just yet. But just know that it's coming and it's coming in, step by step. And Riva will make themselves more known to the community that they are now the person to reach out to. I have tried to hand over as much of what is going on in here as possible. But because we didn't have a formal process before, I didn't have like formal documentation to hand over. So some folks might slip through the cracks. So I encourage you when Riva starts to put out, like, let me know if you're interested. Please, please, please resubmit yourself as if it's for the first time. And hopefully, over the course of, I mean, these things take a lot of time. So hopefully, over the
Mhm.
course of maybe the next year, we start to unveil pieces of this plan.
That's awesome. That's super exciting for me, at least, to hear that there's something that works for that.
Yeah.
Question two. Have there ever been plans for AWT to have its own space and no longer switch around different rehearsal and theaters for each show?
Having our own space is like a long-term dream. It's not it's costly. Like it would
Right.
involve like a whole other business unit for AfterWork Theater because we would probably have to rent out that space in order to cover the costs of maintaining it and
Mhm.
leasing it. I doubt we would own it. And it might also require like a capital fundraising campaign specifically for that space. So it's we would love to, like we'd love to not have to like month to month worry about like where our programming is going to be, but it's not like an easy switch. There's like
Mhm.
a lot of barriers to entry.
Mhm.
If you follow like indie theater news at all, like we're just constantly hearing of like physical theater spaces closing down and closing down and closing down. So now isn't the best time to invest in real estate.
Yeah, totally. Ooh, would this is kind of related to last month's topic, but would there ever be two musicals and plays happening at the same time in place of a sing out or dance out?
Yeah, I mean, it's not immediate, like anything is possible. Again, it comes down to like, can we get the theater space for it? Is there the like, do we have, can we fill the capacity? Do we have enough interest? And I wouldn't say that when we do a musical, there's like 80 other people waiting to like on the wait list. There's a number, but it's
Mhm.
probably not enough to fill like a whole other like musical cast. That being said, when there's two different titles that are different shows, like I do understand there would be a different group of people interested. But the answer is yeah, yes, it's not in the plans for this fiscal year. But as we do future year budgets, we're always looking at like, do we have the demand to grow? And yeah.
Yeah, cool. This next one is kind of related. Are there any plans to increase programming and or season capacity? You kind of just answered that, but
Yeah. I wouldn't say I totally know what the difference is between those two questions, but if I already answered it, great.
yeah, I would say
Yeah.
maybe there's more capacity than we are assuming, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, like I still want to try three casts, you know?
Yeah.
I don't think it was, I think there were pros and cons when we did it with Rent, and I think it's still within the realm of doableness. There's no
Yeah.
creative team members in this interview right now, so there's nobody contradicting at the moment, but
They'll be in the comments.
they'll be in the comments. That's what I was just gonna say.
Another programming question. Would you consider other types of programming in the future aside from main stages, boot camps, and outs, something like a one-act festival or something like that?
I do
Other.
have a personal wish to do a one act festival in collaboration with other companies that are share our mission of
Mm,
accessible theater. So one act festivals are on my radar, but also like in a way that's more just internal to Afterwork Theater. It doesn't have to be a big collaboration, but
mhm.
yeah, anything's on the table. Anything's on the table, and especially with a new brain thinking about programming and with the encouragement to not feel like we have to always do things the way we've been doing them.
Mhm.
Those are like dirty words at Afterwork Theater. We don't like saying it, we don't like doing it. And we're always open to doing things differently than they were before.
It's awesome. I love a one-act festival. We had one in college that I always did. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Will there ever be understudies implemented into main stage shows with at least one guaranteed performance given to an actor to go on as that principal role? I know we kind of consider the cast twins understudies, but
Yeah.
I guess like a more formal
Yeah, an
thing.
understudy with the intention of giving them one show is interesting to me, whereas needing an understudy because we like it is not like we just don't need understudies because we have cast twins, but with the intention of giving somebody the performance opportunity. That is interesting to me, and I've only very recently learned of like other groups who do it that way, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. So like I said, anything's on the table. I will say that one, if people are like watching this to be like, how does Amanda respond to these ideas? Like, my interest is piqued, I will say.
Cool. Will there ever be more than 5 performances per cast for musicals or more than 3 for plays?
The number of performances depend on how much time we have in the theater.
Hmm.
And the rentals are on a weekly basis, so it's not like we can tack on an additional day in almost all cases. And it depends on ticket sales.
Hmm.
So, musicals are ticket sales are doing like they've been doing better every season since the P word, but they have still not reached the levels that they were before that. Before, for those who were not around before the P word, um,
Pineapple, yeah.
yeah, before Pineapple, it was not uncommon to sell out every single performance.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
yeah, yeah, which is not the case today. So we probably won't be adding performances until we need to. And for things like the plays and even the like sing outs and dance outs, like like either we're gonna start moving to smaller spaces that don't have as many seats, or we might cut the shows. Like
Mhm.
we might cut it to 2 per cast. And we did used to do that. Like when we launched the Sing Out program, it was always 2 shows per cast, in
Mhm.
one weekend. So, we grew it for a reason that I don't actually remember, and we might cut it back. And musicals likewise used to only have 4 shows per cast.
Mhm.
So we grew that. We probably won't cut back on that, unless we add a third cast.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You really are jonesing for this third cast.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Oh, I thought this one was interesting. Would there be an admin position for someone who must be involved in the casting process but never participates in the shows to lessen the idea of favoritism when a former creative slash current admin is cast in a lead role? So basically, someone who is hired just solely as an admin who would never be like in the shows.
Yeah. Got it. I think there's a root to that question that is the real question or statement
Mm,
than what the actual question is.
mhm,
So I'm going to just kind of talk about biases in casting in
mhm.
general, and I'll address the actual question. So
Yeah.
I think, is the word favoritism in there?
Yes.
Okay, so favoritism is a bias, right? Favoritism
Mhm,
is a result of a bias, right? Like, and that
mhm,
bias is, I am best friends with so and so, and I really root for them. And then if you decide to cast them purely based on that relationship, that is favoritism, right?
mhm,
There are lots of biases that enter the casting room, and there are a lot of biases that we as human beings like hold. And there's no shame in it. There's nothing wrong with it to say that I root for this person, or I root for this community of people, or I look to uplift this group of people is not inherently a bad thing. It's what you do with it that can become problematic. So
mhm,
you might say, like, therefore, I want to hold this group of people back. Like, that's not
mhm,
necessarily the way we want to go about it. So the first thing we do is we name those things. We name personal relationships, whether they are positive ones or negative ones. And we name like other biases that we might have about like if I'm in the room, I tend to say I have a tendency to want to see my Asian community succeed as well as other people of color. And I name
mhm,
that in the room, and I will name that in on this recording. And we do that so that we just put it all on the table and we can watch each other for when those biases result in harmful behavior in casting. Sometimes those biases can result in positive behavior in casting, and we feel great about that. So the idea of an admin coming in because they don't have feelings about individual people, they still will come into the room with other biases. So to
Yeah.
me, that solution doesn't solve really anything. Um, but if what I'm sensing is this, the person who wrote this question might have a concern about whether this happens, or like what happens in the room when there are personal relationships. And that is what happens. And there's also just like a ton of data on the table and on our screens that will prevent anything egregious from really happening.
Hmm.
And that's both like if a creative team member has a personal relationship, they might feel like, oh, I really want to like not, I want to ignore that person. Like that's not
Yeah.
good either. So
Yeah.
there's just all kinds of data and historical information that really backs up all the decisions that are made in the room to negate, um, a negative result of having a bias. Do you
Hmm.
think that answers the question? I don't know. What do you think, Ellen?
Yeah. I think that answers the question, and I think that I think you're right that that sort of, I guess, like you would call it maybe like an anxiety of that favoritism being in the room. I think you addressed that well.
Yeah.
Um,
And it doesn't mean you're never going to see a director or music director cast someone they're in a relationship with or work with or are roommates with. And so like if you see them cast someone that they're friends with, then your confirmation bias just kicks in. But like
right.
also that person like hasn't been a lead in like 5 shows, and we needed a person of a specific ethnicity to play that part, and they fit, like there's all
Hmm.
kinds of other reasons why that person was cast.
Yeah, totally. I think that makes total sense. We are actually zooming through these.
Phenomenal.
Will there ever be headshots slash bios added to playbills? So many times I get a compliment shouted at me after the show, and it would be nice to be addressed by my name calmly.
I don't I really want to know the story behind that
You
one.
know, who's
That
yelling at you?
Wait, is that the end of the question?
That's the end of the question.
Okay. I thought we were pausing for laughter. Uh,
No.
now that we're really all virtual, like the answer is yes, in terms of like the amount of paper and the cost of that paper, both like economically as well as environmentally, is no longer a factor. But
Mhm.
it still takes people bandwidth to put those things together. And the person on our staff who puts that together also has a million other responsibilities.
Right.
But like a volunteer could be really helpful with that. It could be like if the cast wants like to put like have a volunteer crew do that and just submit the PDFs, like I can't see why that staff member it's Meryl,
I was gonna say, I
wouldn't
think we
be
all know who
amenable to
you're
that.
talking.
Yeah, I'm very protective of Meryl's time. Um,
Right.
and I'm both very protective of Meryl's time, and I'm also very open to ideas. And sometimes those two things don't live in a world together. So,
Mhm.
but I believe in creative solutions, and I think people are really eager to help out. So, yeah, I hope Meryl doesn't get mad at me for that one.
Right. She'll also be in the comments.
I know. Yeah.
And this is our last question.
Oh my.
Yeah, we really, really blazed through. Would we consider a credit that can be applied to registering for future shows offered to performers who have to source more than a certain amount towards costume props for their characters in a current show? Oh my God, my cat just knocked everything over. I am so sorry. Did you get that before I was attacked?
Yes, I did. I did. I did.
Okay, let
Um,
me real quick. Hi, this is Loki. He's fading into the background.
oh.
Oh, come down here.
The let's start at the beginning. So costumes, we do have a costume budget for what we would call specialty items. So
Okay.
our costume coordinator uses its budget to be like, oh, it's cabaret and we have to rent a gorilla costume, right?
Hmm.
We're not expecting anyone in this community to have a gorilla costume just hanging out in their closet or to
Right.
easily find one in a thrift shop. Or like we need, 20 staff aprons. Great.
Mm,
They're going to buy these white aprons so that they all look the same. But underneath, you have to wear a black dress, right? And we make a judgment call on what we think can easily be found either in closets, in your community members' closets, at thrift stores, etc.
mm,
There are participants who choose to just make a really big expensive purchase on Amazon for their costumes, and it's fine. I
yeah.
have mixed feelings about it because it's like you're making a choice to do that, and that's great. But I think that also like creates a disparity in like the level of costumes between people who can afford it and people who can't. And then
Mm,
then it starts to become like a, well, now I got to keep up with everyone else. So
mm,
now people are digging into their pockets a little bit more than they would want to for the show.
mm,
So how we rein that all back in is more of an interest to me than starting to just throw money at a problem, if that makes sense.
mm,
So I love this question because I think it opens up a discussion that, quite frankly, we've had in the staff room, but we haven't really had out in the open in the community. And that is like when like we do what we do with tuition to make it accessible for everyone, but then there's
mm,
like all these other things that like not are we somewhat feel are out of our control, but like how do we create more of an environment of like, I don't want to appear to be the richest person on the stage because I have 17 costumes that I bought
right.
myself, and now it's making other people feel like they have to do the same thing. um,
Mm,
and I don't know what the next step for that is. It's a thing that I don't have an answer for, and I have more questions than I do answers. And I'd love to start an open dialogue about that.
mhm,
But yes, like when people spend a lot of money on costumes, it creates an inequity
mm,
that I think it would be good to talk about. What do you think?
right. Um, yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a conversation that should be had. I'm not really sure what the answer for that would be.
Yeah,
Like, maybe, I guess I've wondered in the past. I'll add my own question into the
I
questions.
would love that.
Here, I have wondered in the past about the possibility of having like a standing community costume closet
Mm.
somewhere. Like
Hmm.
rather, I know we have space in like Sierravich. I know it's small. Um,
Yeah.
but something like that people can like go and look at. I don't know if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
I would be interested if like somebody could volunteer some like
Mm,
storage space or closet space. I don't want to put any freestanding soft goods in the basement of Sirovich. It's just not
mm,
like environmentally good for
yeah.
textiles, I would say, unless they're like sealed in something.
Mm,
But if somebody had like the closet space in their apartment and was willing to be like a volunteer costume captain or something for the
hmm
community, I'd be interested in that. Or if even if it was just virtual,
hmm
like someone kept like a virtual inventory of things
Yeah.
that people could go through. Like that's really cool. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I like that. You just said with the virtual like a spreadsheet or something.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be really neat.
I also like I didn't apply this year, but like last year we had a grant from the Broadway Green Alliance. And
Mhm.
sometimes, how proud I am of my ideas. And when I'm like, this is a great idea. And then we do it and I'm like, this is a really bad idea. But I wanted to use where we had the thought to use that grant. It was $500 as like a thrifting reimbursement to
Mm,
really encourage people to thrift. And we were able to use the money, but it was through like to a very small number of people. So like
mm,
small number of people opted in, but they went to town. And
mhm,
I'd love to maybe, I don't want to give up on that, it was the first time we tried doing it, but I think that kind of subsidy, like I'd rather subsidize through a green grant, people doing green things as opposed to giving people money to give it to Amazon, if that makes.
yeah, yeah, totally. That makes total sense. Great answer. someone with a closet, reach out.
Yeah,
Cool. Well, that was all of our community sourced questions.
great.
Thank you, everyone. As always, we love to bust an AWT myth before we close out. Amanda, is there a myth that you would like to dispel about AWT?
I would. I feel like it's a little bit tangential to one of the earlier myths I've busted. But I have heard the peep folks when they like have feedback or like want to like give input into something, they have told me that, oh wow, I've been sitting on this for a while. I was really hesitant because I thought there would be like, I'd get kicked out or like there'd be retaliation or like people would hate me. Like if you want to have an open dialogue with me about something, chances are like I'm just gonna call on you more.
Yeah.
Chances are like I'm gonna get into your DMs and ask you what you think about things. And I'm always very grateful when people are willing to have like just a conversation. Like this is tangential to like me, like I'm not mean, we're not judgmental. Like please, like come talk to us instead of stewing about it, and there is no retaliation unless like having more conversations with me you would consider retaliation. um Maybe that's not the most pleasant thing in the world for people.
Well, be
um
careful because you might be punished with a web series that
oh yeah, duh, case in point.
No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no,
Um,
but you're absolutely right, you're absolutely right. Like you'll just be like brought to the forefront more.
Great. Well, thank you. Before we really close out, I did want to give a little sneak preview into our next episode. We'll be covering any follow-up questions, or things you didn't ask about our past topics. So that was casting, show selection, and this one, the future of AWT. So start brainstorming those. I know you have them because you have told me about them, and that form will probably go out next week. Yay.
Sure,
Yay.
yay.
Thank you, as always, for being so open, Amanda. This was
You're very
great.
welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you for organizing this, and thank you to all the community members for your
Yeah,
amazing
thank you to,
questions slash ideas.
yeah. Thank you. You all have really great ideas, as we uncovered today. So
Yeah,
thanks, guys.
great.